Hi, and welcome to the very first episode of Digital Dominators. I'm Sue Jung, your host, guide, and digital cheerleader, here to help you unlock the tools, strategies, and confidence to absolutely smash it online. If you're a small business owner, an entrepreneur, or just someone looking to conquer the tech world without losing your sanity, you're in the right place. Trust me, it's going to be a blast. Right, before we dive in, let me tell you a wee bit about myself. I'm the founder of Technology Coaching, and I've spent over 15 years helping businesses navigate the ever-changing digital landscape. I started out teaching in Japan, worked as a trainer for tech giants like Apple, and had even partnered with brands like Facebook, Google, and the NHS to help people like you become digital rock stars. Now, I know tech can feel like an intimidating monster with too many buttons and not enough instructions, but my mission is simple: to make it easy, actionable, and even a little bit fun. Because let's face it, business is serious enough. Why shouldn't learning about it be enjoyable? I started Digital Dominators because I know how overwhelming it can be to run a business in today's digital world. Social media, algorithms, AI tools, cybersecurity. It's like being asked to DJ at a party when you've only ever used a cassette player, right? So this podcast is here to simplify it all. Think of it as your weekly digital toolkit filled with no-nonsense advice, inspiring stories, and tips you can put into action on the same day. Oh, and there'll be plenty of laughs along the way, because if we're not having a bit of a giggle, what's the point? Each week, we're going to dive deep into one of the 6 essential digital skills: innovation, web presence, social media marketing, cybersecurity, AI and automation, and making decisions with data. It sounds fancy, but don't worry, I'll break it all down into simple steps you can actually use. You'll also get insider secrets from top experts, real-life success stories, and a few cheeky tips to help you stay ahead of the curve. Whether you want to boost your visibility, streamline your systems, or finally understand what the heck a chatbot actually does, this podcast has got you covered. So what's coming up? In your first full episode, we'll be diving into website visibility, turning your searches into sales. It's going to be packed with insights, so keep listening. Now, before you go, here's your homework. Yes, I'm assigning you homework already. Hit that subscribe button so you don't miss an episode. And if you're loving the sound of this, leave a wee review and tell your mates about it. Let's build a community of digital dominators together, yeah? And if you've got a question or a topic you'd love me to cover, drop me a message on social media at Technology Coaching. I'm always up for a chat, problem solving, or brainstorming some new ideas. Alright, that's it for your introduction. Remember, the digital world is yours to dominate. So hit subscribe, get comfy, and let's dive into episode 1. Hi everyone, welcome to Digital Dominators, the podcast where we break down the skills, stories, and systems that help you thrive in the digital age. Today's episode is all about website visibility and how to get found online and turn that attention into real business results. And I've got just the person to guide us through it. Jules White is the founder of the Website Success Hub, where she helps women grow their businesses by teaching them how to make their websites work for them. Her speciality is breaking down website strategy and SEO into simple, bite-sized steps that actually make sense, so business owners can attract more customers, earn more, and create real freedom for themselves and their families. Jules believes that your website shouldn't just sit there, it should be your hardest working employee. Through her practical, no-fluff approach, she empowers women to stop feeling overwhelmed by tech and start building websites that do the selling for them. In this episode, we're talking about what really means to be visible online. The small tweaks that make an impact, and how to shift your website from being a passive brochure into a powerful sales engine. If SEO has ever made your eyes glaze over, don't worry, Jules has a way of making it all click. So let's get into it. Hello, Jules. How are you?
Hi, I'm really well, thank you. It's great to be here.
It's nice to have you on. Thank you for joining me today. And this is one that I'm super excited for us to dive into a little bit more because it's one of the fundamentals of running and having a business. It's usually for people that aren't in the business world, it's always the first question that they'll ask, isn't it? Is, do you have a website? And as business owners, we're like either yes, no, but it's not really working. It's not how I like it to be. Is it working for me? So I know that we're going to have a great conversation delving into that a lot more today. And firstly, though, what I'd like you to tell me and the listeners is how you got into this space. Tell us about your journey. What brought you to being the website helper and the website builder? Tell us your story so far, Jules.
Yeah, so I my background is actually as a beauty and holistic therapist, but I've always been a geek as well, and I've actually been building websites since 2007. But as part of my salon role, so before COVID, I had a split role in a salon where I did a day and a half of marketing, doing the websites and the marketing within the salon, like we had digital screens and those kind of stuff. So I was doing all that kind of thing. And 3.5 days doing treatments. And I knew that it was time for a change. Even pre-COVID, I knew it was time for me to do something different. And when I was furloughed from the salon, I had a chance to pause and to learn to build websites properly. So I learned how to build them on WordPress. And I thought when I left my salon job at the end of 2021, I thought I was going to be building websites for people. What I quickly realized is I don't like looking at a blank screen. I much prefer looking at something and telling you what to change and how to make it better. But also that we were building these websites and then actually getting people to find them was a real challenge. And I think it was about 3 or 4 months after I left the salon, I realized I was still on their Google business profile. And I had a look at them. I was like looking at it as I was taking myself off of it. And I realized that they'd had 3,000 views on one of their photos in 1 month. And that was a bit of a light bulb moment for me, really. And that's how I kind of ended up going down the SEO route, because I started helping people with their Google business profiles. And that's a really great way, to very quickly get some traffic coming into your website. But yeah, I just realized that there was this real problem where people were building websites and they just weren't working for them. So they just weren't actually, then people weren't finding them. And yeah, that is a real issue. And so that's how I kind of ended up going down that route, really.
Wow, what a journey. Now, you've been working in the website space since 2007, so working with website development. And so that's a lot of skills that you've gained from just doing practical on the job kind of work. And I think a lot of people don't realize that actually the skills that they gain from just doing things in their day-to-day job are transferable, whether they then want to move into setting up a website or thinking about other skills that they can do within their job role. So I really liked how you touched on that there, because I think that's a lot of people can connect with that information or remember that that's the skills that you have can help you lead into whatever it is that you want to do next.
Yeah,
But I'll
I think that's true. I've actually had conversations with ChatGPT recently about some of the skills that I maybe do undervalue from my time back in the salon and how it applies to my business. And yeah, it's something that we don't realize, actually, our own strengths, I think.
Yeah, I think this is really important when it's your skills stacking. So it's the different skills that you have that make you your unique self that then is going to really impact on what makes you unique compared to the AI tools and the technology tools that are out there as well. I wanted to start with what you mentioned there around SEO and why that's important. And you realized that that was important for business owners. And you mentioned there about Google My Business as well, and that was your first place that you started with it. So is there anything that you can share with individuals if they're going, right, I know that I need to work on SEO, or I've heard of that word SEO. What does it mean? How can I start to use it? And how will it benefit me? Let's break it down a little bit for our listeners.
Yeah, definitely. I think this is often something that happens is that people have heard of it, but really not sure what SEO is. So SEO stands for search engine optimization. And essentially what it means is that the information on your website is set up in a way that it shows up in search engines like Google and Bing. And the reason that we tend to focus on Google, if people talk about SEO, that you generally think about Google, is because even now, Google has lost some of its traffic, its market share, because of AI tools coming out, ChatGPT, and being able to search on there. But even now, the majority of people who are using a search engine, it's still going through Google. So that's why we focus on that. And also, if you do the things to optimize your website for Google, then that will still help you to show up in other search engines as well. And we have to get those basics in place if we want ChatGPT to be recommending our business. We have to do the stuff for the search engine optimization. But yeah, it's often thought like it's often very techy, and it's in the way it's explained is just too confusing. But it's essentially, it's just making sure that when you're looking at your website, you're working out what you want to show up for. So that's quite often where people sort of don't realize that, actually just taking it back a step and thinking, what should I be showing up for on Google? If my customers are typing something into Google, what are the things that I should be showing up for? Working out which page of your website is the most appropriate for that search term. And then just optimizing that page. And by optimizing, we mean just essentially using those words that people are typing into Google in strategic places on the page, that then helps as the search engines actually crawl through your website, it helps you then to be that page that they recommend. Probably one thing that's quite sort of important to sort of talk about is the way that Google works. So Google's little robots go through and they crawl through all of the pages on the internet, and then they try and work out where to put them in the index. So if you think of Google's index like a big library, what Google is essentially trying to do is work out all those individual web pages, what's the best place to put them, and what's the relevant sort of sections to put them in the library. And if you can imagine that job of actually trying to work out which page of the internet is the best one to show up for a search, you can't even imagine trying to do that. But we have to make sure that the words on our website and the way that the back end of our website is set up helps those search engines to understand that, helps those bots that go through and crawl through our website understand that. And that sounds really technical, but it doesn't have to be. It's something that most website builders now it's quite easy to do that in there. Once you know what you need to do, it's quite easy then to go through and do that.
I think you've explained that really, really clearly there. And I love how giving the full understanding of it. So let's go into some of those basics for the website builders. What are some of the things that people can do when they're going to their website? Can you give examples of different builders that they can use, or what's the standardized across all of the different builders? And I'll get this dog sorted.
So yeah, I think in terms of website builders, most website builders now are much better. Most, we're not back in the days where people have to hand code websites and they have to hand it off to a developer to do everything. Website builders now are so much easier to use. And when you go into a website builder, so examples of website builders, WordPress is one of the big ones. So that's the one where it was over 40% of the internet last time I looked, but 40% of websites were built on WordPress. And I think definitely that there is a shift there as well. The other website builders that come out now, the ones that are sort of more of all-in-one platforms or more sort of drag and drop, where they're very, very easy to use, are changing the way that people build websites. When I first started my business, I would recommend WordPress, but I actually, after working with clients and realizing that it needs to be as simple as possible, I now recommend other platforms. And I've got a few platforms that I kind of recommend, and it does depend on the business. It really does. So I think when you're considering website platforms, it's worth taking some time to work out what you need, what you will need moving forward as well, because ideally you don't want to have to move your website. We've lots of clients who've migrated their website and then lost all their traffic, and then we've had that job of trying to recover that if we can. And before you start building a website, think about what you need from it and then work out sort of what's the best platform for you. When you go into those website builders and you build your website out, there are certain places on your page where you can put those keywords. And I say keywords, that's the thing that people type into Google. We call them keywords. Often they're key phrases. So keyword itself, that word can be quite confusing because people then think it's, like for my business, a keyword, you might think SEO is a keyword or websites is a keyword. So if you think about the amount of websites out there that mention the word website, my small business is not going to be showing up in number one in Google for that term. But you can then get more specific phrases. So what is the best website builder? Those kind of things. I would have more chance of actually creating an article talking about that and actually getting that showing up on Google. That's actually probably still quite a competitive search term to try and rank for. But as we're thinking about those keywords, there's certain places, to say, on your website builder that you would put that. So as you're building your website pages, one of the best places to put that keyword is after the slug. So if you've got your URL, so you've got mywebsite.com/ and that bit after the slash, if you can get your keywords in there, and if it sounds natural and doesn't sound like you've stuffed those keywords in there, that's one of the best places to start. So if you're creating new pages for your website, if you're creating new blogs, or if you're creating new sort of service pages, or case studies is another good one where you can create those case studies. And rather than having like the name of the customer or something like that, you can actually have something that relates to you helping that person. And the page title and page description is the next place where website builders are usually set up in a way where you can see that as you're building out pages. And if you're not sure about this, then just Google it. Like if you're using whatever platform you're using, how do I add a page title and description on WordPress or whichever website builder you're using? So getting your keywords in there is really important. And the description is something, so if we're thinking about where these things apply, your page title, if you ever do a Google search, is the bit that shows up in blue or purple, and it's the bit that shows the name of that page. And it also shows up in your little browser tabs, as you click through and you've got 100 tabs open, the page title is the bit that shows up there. Your page description is the bit that then shows below that in a Google search. And that's the bit that then encourages people to click through. So it is worth spending some time thinking about that and crafting good page titles and descriptions, making sure they're not too long. Ideally, you want your page title to be under 70 characters. Normally around 60 works quite well. The page description between 119 and 135 characters seems to work quite well there. With those, you do need to make sure that it aligns with what's on the page as well. So Google will, if your page description doesn't actually match the content of that page, then Google will rewrite it and it will actually be like, no, I know what this page is about and it's actually about this. And quite often what it will do is just take a snippet from that page and use that, which may not then necessarily align with what you're actually trying to get that page to show up for on Google. Also within that, you need to have, if we're thinking about building out your pages, this is quite a big thing that often people will not have done. The website builders kind of set us up to fail with this a little bit. There's something called page hierarchy, which sounds technical, but actually all it means is that the way you set your website up is set up in a way that it's naturally readable. So if we take it back to is if you were writing an English essay at school, you would have one heading, then you would have subheadings within that would cover the sort of different topics within that article you were writing. And then maybe within those subheadings, you'd have some subsections or something like that. And we want to do the same thing with our websites. So ideally, we want to have one heading and then some H2s that are the subheadings and then sort of go from there, really. And we often end up using these headings. So if you look at your website builder, you will always have, as you're adding sections in, you'll always have something that allows you to select whether it's a paragraph text or a H1 heading, H2, H3, normally down to about H6. And people use them for styling, for visual styling of a website. So they use them to make their fonts look bigger and to adjust their pages that way. I can always tell whether they've done any work on their SEO because it's one of the first things that I check. And quite often you'll go in and it'll be H6 followed by H2 followed by H1, and they'll have multiple H1s on the page. Whereas if you think about it, take it back a step, even if you start writing out the words on your website, the copy, writing that in a Word document and thinking about it as if you were writing this as an essay. So you want one heading, one H1 at the top. That's really important. And ideally you want those keywords that you're trying to get this page to rank for. You want them in that H1 heading, if it sounds natural. That's one big caveat with all of this SEO stuff. If it doesn't sound like something you would say to another human being, then change it and don't use it in there. And there's sometimes a bit of a sort of battle between people who are working on SEO on a website and copywriters, because copywriters want it to sound this way and SEO people want it to sound that way. And it's about getting that balance, I think, really. So I would always say, if it doesn't sound right, go with the human version rather than the SEO version. And then thinking about those subheadings within your article, make sure you've always got that natural hierarchy. So you never have a H1 followed by a H4 and then another H1 or whatever. And just thinking about within that topic, so whatever you're trying to get that page to show up for on Google, what are the subtopics related to that? And those would then become your subheadings. And then with website builders, you can often then go in and manually change the styles, but it's worth thinking about that with your page as well, because this isn't just about it showing up in Google. It's also about getting the important information for people who are actually landing on that page and getting them to be able to scan through that and understand it, really. Like attention spans are also terrible now, that people just come on and they will skim read a website. So it's good for SEO, but that will also help you then to get people to take the action that you want them to on your website as well. So then the other places that you want your keywords to naturally be on the page is naturally throughout the content. You ideally want them in the first 250 words and the last 250 words. And then just about every 250 words or so, just bring it back to that subject. And it's not necessarily that you have to keep repeating that same keyword over and over and over again. You can then think about, okay, what would be another way that people would describe this? What would be a similar way that people would describe it? So you're just bringing it back to that topic. Google and the bots are so much smarter now that they can understand that relation between the content, really. The other place that you want to use those keywords is in your website builder. As you add images to your website, you'll see a little box that says alt text or alternative text or SEO text or something like that. This is originally for accessibility. So for people who are using screen readers, or for back in the day when, well, I say back in the day, sometimes we don't have good mobile signal, but where websites wouldn't load quickly on mobile, then you could see that text there to explain what that image is. Quite often people will say, well, when I'm writing the alternative text, am I not just describing the image? And you kind of are, really. And I think it's quite good to think about that as you're adding images to your website, and think about whether they're actually relevant for that section that you're on there. A good example of this is if I was back in the salon and I was creating a page about pedicures. If I had a picture of a back massage next to that description of pedicures, there's that natural disconnect there. And actually what we're trying to do with the images on our website, they're not just there to make it look pretty. They're there to help us get that information across, to help people understand what we do, how we're going to help them, and what they need to do to get it, really. So when you're thinking about your image alt text, alternative text, it should naturally you should be able to describe it, and that should then tie in with your keyword. So at least one of your image alt text, ideally you want that to contain that keyword as well. And then links coming into that page. So one of the big things that you can do with your website to help you to show up on Google and to help Google to understand the context of all your content together and why you're an authority on your topic is linking your content together. If you're writing blog posts, linking those blogs together throughout your website so that people come on and they know where to go next. There are other related articles. They can then binge your content, understand more about you, and it helps both Google and people to go through your website and understand your content. And when you're linking to an article, say I'm linking from blog post 1 to blog post 2, those keywords that I want blog post 2 to rank for, use that within the article. So describe it that way in the article and use that as the actual link there as well. So I think that's all the places on the page that you can sort of optimize for SEO. And that's a real whistle stop tour of how to actually optimize your platform. It's one of those things that I think once you understand it, and once you understand how to make those changes in your website builder, and you understand that thing behind it of, oh yeah, it makes sense that actually the page is set up and the website builders make this so much easier for us, because all we have to do is just pay attention to the front end, and then our website builders handle the back end that tells Google these things about our sites, really. One other thing I would say about websites, and this is quite an important thing, I normally say about this when I'm explaining about how Google works, is to think about the fact that Google ranks web pages rather than whole websites. Because quite often we'll think about, okay, what do I want my what do I want my website to show up for? But if you think about, if you're doing a Google search, it's lots of individual pages that are showing up. And quite often then you can end up with content that's competing against itself. So if you're mentioning your keywords, your important keywords for your business on every single page of your website, how does Google know which one is the best one to actually show up for you, really?
I think you have explained how SEO works so clearly for people in such a short period of time. So let's delve into it a little bit more. I loved how you laid out the structure of how to write your pages. So let's differentiate a little there between your website pages that are sharing information about the products and services that you provide and how you help your audience, compared to possibly blog posts where you want to structure the reasons why you offer these products and services, and the examples of how you've done that. Is that how you would express to kind of write those pages? And what would you find being the difference between how you do that from a setup stage? And then we'll go into keywords research around that.
Yeah, so I think it is important to understand that any page on your website, that hierarchy should be set up in a natural way. And quite often people will think about it for blogs, and they'll think about keywords for blogs, but they won't necessarily think about it for their services page. And I would always say, when I'm working with clients, I always say, start with those money pages first. So get your homepage, make sure that's optimized. And the homepage is one where there's always a little bit, it's always a little bit more tricky, because your homepage, unless you have a real specific thing that you want your homepage to show up for, and that might be generally what you do as a business, but then that might also be your services page that you want to show up for that. So it's something that there's no I mean, there are right and wrong ways to do things, but there's no right or wrong keyword that you're actually looking for that page. If you want your page to be associated with that, it might not necessarily then be showing up in page 1 of Google or position 1, but it's something that you get to decide, okay, this is what I want this page to show up for. But ultimately, the structure of the page needs to be the same, whether it is a blog post or whether it is a services page. And I would always say, think about the features rather than think about I literally, every time I talk about features and benefits, I always say features. Benefits. Think about the benefits of what you're offering and focus on that, in terms of when you're thinking about what people will be searching Google for related to what you do. Think about either the problem that you're trying to solve or the benefit that you give to those people, really. So
I like the fact that you're mentioning it doesn't need to be the exact same keywords on every page that you're using, because you did mention previously there how that competes with Google, right? Because you're competing with yourself then for the ranking. But it's about explaining the benefits to your audience and in different ways that the audience might understand that. So in the same way that you would articulate that communication, if you're speaking face to face with somebody, it would be the same way as how you explain that through the language that's written on the page. And then it's just following that structure on the same on both services and products pages as the same structure as it would be on a blog post. You're just maybe going into a little bit more detail or a specific example of it within a blog post in that way. So I think you raise a really good point there, that it's not always thought about when people are creating their web pages, and we don't build for thinking about how these web tools, so that being Google, these search engines and the AI tools that are out there, how they're actually reading the content, because we're only thinking about the customer and what that customer, which is great. We want to be thinking about our customer, but we've got to remember, again, I know that we both say the same thing here, that these tools work for us. We don't work for them, right? So we need to set them up in a way so that they can work for us in that way. So let's talk about keywords then. So keywords, how do you get people, when you're working with clients, to go into their keyword research? Are there any strategies that you get them to use? Are there any other tools that you would get them to go through and that will help them to find the right keywords and then be able to structure them well across their website?
Yeah. So keywords are an interesting one, actually. And it's one of those things that when I was taught SEO, it's one of the different ways that I sort of teach versus other SEO agencies or other SEO educators. When I was taught about SEO, it was like, yes, start with keyword research. You need to do it until your eyes bleed. And, and actually what I found from
exactly
working,
that.
that's what you mean. Start with keyword research. And so people are like, okay, right. I know, I can work out I can go and find a tool that I can do that. Now, what do I do? It's like, okay. Whereas actually, from working with clients as well, I found this, that we've done keyword research and then it's like, okay, well, what am I doing with that? How is that actually helping me right now when I haven't put the basics in place? So I would always say, take a step back for it. Use your own brain to begin with. And you can definitely use ChatGPT for this. ChatGPT is great for keyword ideas. Don't rely on it in terms of how much search volume is there, like how many people are searching a month, because it will not only lie about it, it will also blag it and say it's not lying. I've had this before where I thought, well, I'll test it against my tools that work. I know, work, and no keyword research tool is 100% accurate. So it's something like you have to go with what you can really. Yeah. And ChatGPT will tell me this, and then when I say that's not quite right, oh, sorry, I gave you the US figures there. It's like, no, that's not right for them either. You're lying. So what I would say is it's great for ideation, but not for specific research, really. But anyway, before you do that, take a step back and start thinking about make a list yourself of the things that you want to show up for on Google, the important terms that are related to your business, the things that you need to be seen as an expert about, the core topics that you actually focus on with your content and throughout your product pages, your services pages. What are those words that you need to show up for on Google? I love your approach with ChatGPT and asking ChatGPT, and you talk about how you do that in a minute. But actually, just that of actually, what do I want to? If somebody types my name into Google or into ChatGPT, what do I want it to be associating with me? And then thinking about the pages of your website. And as I say, work out which page of your website is the most appropriate for that particular search term, and start with that. So start getting those basics in place. Then once you've done that, and if you are then at a point where you want to start creating some more content, you want to have an idea of the more specifics of what people are actually searching for, then there are tools that you can use. There are lots of free tools you can use, and start with something simple. I use a keyword research tool. I have one that I pay for, like the expensive SEO ones, but there's one called KW Finder. The website is Mangools, Mangools. And it's one where you get a certain amount of searches each day, but it's very visually easy to use. It gives you a difficulty score as well. So it will tell you how many people each month are searching for that particular term. It will help you then, like you can put in what we call a seed keyword, which is the one where it's a very general term, and there may be lots of people searching for it, but there's also a ton of content out there about it. So you're unlikely then to probably show up for that seed keyword. But that will then give you other ideas of potential keywords and key phrases that you could then maybe start to try and create some content for. And it will also tell you the search intent. And search intent is something that's really important as well to consider when you're thinking about creating pages for your website. Think about what kind of content Google associates with that search term. If you're thinking, okay, I want to show up for this particular search term, what pages is Google associating with that? Because when people are searching on Google, generally they're either looking for information, they're looking to make a purchase, they're looking to do some more research before they make a purchase, or they're looking for a local business, or they already know what they're trying to find and they just need to find it, basically. So those are the different types of search intent. And ideally, if we're working on one of our sales pages, we want to find a keyword to try and target that has a commercial search intent. And these are the ones I would always say to focus on first. So as I say, focus on your pages that are closest to the money, closest to the sale, and find some commercial intent keywords to rank those pages for. And if you're not sure what kind of content, you know there's something you want to show up for on Google, you're not sure what kind of content page to create around that, just go and do a Google search and see what kind of content Google is delivering. If it's something that you're trying to get your sales page to rank for a particular search term, and you go to Google and Google is only showing blogs, then it's unlikely that your sales page is going to show up in that search term, because Google knows that's not what people want when they're searching for that particular search term. And sometimes you might find that you look at a Google search and there's mixed intent. So you might then find some YouTube videos, you might find some local businesses showing up, like the maps, some Google business profiles, or you might find that there are some blogs as well as some sales pages and services pages, those kind of things in there, really. But it's worth thinking about that when you're thinking about, okay, these keywords and trying to start doing some keyword research. Don't go down a big rabbit hole with it. Just start with the basics and start mapping those pages on your website. So keep an Excel spreadsheet or something where you list the URLs, the pages of your website, and what you're trying to rank that page for. And just start with one target keyword as well. I think we can often, when we're doing keyword research and when we're like, if ChatGPT is giving you suggestions, then it will say this is the primary keyword and this is the secondary one. And don't worry about secondary to begin with. Just first of all, focus on a target keyword for each page, really.
I love that explanation. I like that tool, Mangles. I looked it up at the same time as you were sharing it there, and I've not seen this one myself, so thank you for that. And I liked how you explained about the different types of kind of other words that come off of your, what did you call it, off of the main keyword,
So
and then
secondary
having them the
so
secondary keyword.
seed keywords, and then you
Seed
can
keywords,
get
that
some
was it.
ideas. Yeah, because there might be some search terms out there that there's only, I don't know, say like 50 people a month searching for it, but when those people who are searching really want to buy something, so actually if you can get your pages to show up for that, then fantastic. It's much better than something where there's 20,000 people searching for it, but they're actually just trying to find a blog post, and now ChatGPT would just deliver that on its as an answer anyway. So it's something that is worth thinking about, that in terms of, okay, is it something that where I've got a chance of ranking for it, where there's not a ton of really high authority websites out there, and we can talk about website authority, but that actually I've got a chance of ranking for it, and also people are looking for to make a purchase, really. So
And I think we've got to remember that there are companies that are paying to appear higher up in the Google searches, and they're paying for their content to be shown first. And that's where the differentiation of the marketing aspect of it comes into play. And a lot of what we've talked about are just the kind of standard setup and organic approaches to having the infrastructure of your website in place. So also, again, just to raise awareness, to not be too concerned if you're not appearing right at the top, because somebody's paying to do that. And that's a strategy that you can move into if you want to appear higher up on the searches in that way. And especially when it comes to things like video content and it comes to imagery as well, especially for product based businesses. So let's touch on that a little bit more, the differences between then the kind of service based companies and the product based businesses that are having a web presence, which are very different in their audiences of how they're trying to attract clients into their spaces. So for example, let's talk about product based businesses. And I know just recently with working with a client on this, and we can expand on this in other environments as well, but for example, with your Google My Business page, that links with other tools that you've maybe already got set up on your business, that you don't realize that Google actually has this Google merchant in place that will then connect with, if you're using WordPress, your WooCommerce or your Shopify store, which means when people are searching for that product, which normally they'll do on Amazon or they'll do for it on Google, doing their due diligence, as they are people are more savvy now with how they're connecting online. So it's great that they're doing for these searches because they're looking for the cheapest option, they're looking for the most reliable, they're looking for the local, depending on what they're searching for. And you can easily set that up, and it's a free resource and a free tool that's made by these platforms. So there's something there around working with the technology, working with the tools in that way to make sure that it's set up. So let's just talk about that firstly, and then we'll move on to kind of the service-based businesses and how that impacts via keyword, I think, research that way.
Yeah. So I think it's something that there's so many tools from Google that we can massively utilize. And actually, as we were talking about keywords, I didn't mention about Google Search Console, which is a tool that you can then set up, and that will tell you how Google is seeing your website, and it will tell you what search queries are being associated with your website, but also more importantly, the ones that aren't as well. But the tools like Google Business Profile and Google Merchant Center, actually, just even setting up the basics of those. And I think it can often just feel really overwhelming and it can feel too technical. But I've seen it time and time again where actually we see that Google Business Profiles are actually bringing customers through to the website straight, time and time again. And that's often a really, really good source of quick wins for a business as well. And it's the same with Google Merchant as well, the Merchant Center, that actually anything you can do to help you to be the one that shows up in Google, then make the most of that. And especially if you are using WordPress as well, so you can set up that to automatically then take that information from your website and show in your Google Merchant account there, or sync that with your Google Merchant account, then that is really important. And it's something that is there free as well, so you don't have to then be paying for Google ads to make the most of that and to be those ones that are showing up in the shopping results as well. And this will also apply for the AI overviews as well, which are then giving more nuanced shopping results. So people can then type into ChatGPT, find me some blue high-heeled shoes in a size 6 that I can go and buy today, or something like that. And actually then it goes off and it does the search for us. But if you can make sure that the information on your website is set up in the right way, that then delivers that information through to the bots and they can read it, they can then show you in those search results, then why not? Why not? When rather than posting another post on Instagram, just spend some time on something you own and that you can actually then make the most of it, really.
Exactly that. And I think that's where small business owners fall down, is that we focus on the things that we think are going to work, but actually we have no control over that. That being social media being one of them, right? So we spend all our time marketing. I do that with my quotation marks here, marketing on social media. However, actually having your infrastructure set up with your web presence Is your Google profile up to date? Even just updating your images that you mentioned. You briefly touched on like the importance of images. So on Google My Profile. So we'll maybe come back to this. We've got so much
I
that we can
know
talk
we need to do
about in
another
this
one,
1
don't
hour.
we?
We're going to need to do another one. And this is like the having these things set up. That Google has a ton of free tools, right? Social media is free web tools for you to promote your business, but making sure they're set up properly is super important. So having a standardized system for you to do that is what's going to help you. So let's then, okay, I know we've got more that we're going to talk about, but I want to get into strategy in some sort of way because we haven't really approached that. So how do you think a business owner can start with their strategy for, first of all, keyword research, their web pages structure, and their blog post content in that way? So, how can we start to strategize that, or put it into a system for ourselves so that we're going, right, I want to get a blog post out that I can then automate that and send that out via an email, that then I've got social media content that I can create off that blog post that I can then drive traffic to my website from that and have that consistent funnel coming through of traffic towards the website. How do you strategize that for what you want to say to your audience? Let the tools work. You know what I mean? How do we do it?
So I would definitely say I would first of all take a step back from that and
Okay.
start, because so many people aren't doing the basics. So start thinking about those most important pages of your website. When I'm working, I have a website success pathway. When we're working through that, phase one is making sure the basics are in place. So making sure the low hanging fruit is there first. So your Google profile is set up. If you're a product-based business, making sure that you've got that Google Merchant stuff set up as well. Making sure the basics are in place on your website, that your homepage, and depending on what kind of business you are, those 3 to 5 most important pages to focus on first would be different. It might be a sales page, it might be a product category page or something like that, where actually that is something that you could focus on that first. If you're not sure, as I say, start with the ones closest to the sale, but thinking about that first and thinking about getting those optimized, then you can start. And actually one of those 3 to 5 key pages might, for some businesses, it might be a blog post. It might be a blog post that's really relevant for what you do. You want to be seen as the authority on that. Or it might be a blog post that's getting a lot of traffic already. But actually, if you go through and make a few conversion optimizations on there, or a few little tweaks that you can then make sure that page is doing what you want, focus on that first. Focus on having some kind of database that's going to help you to understand what you're trying to achieve with your website. And then also you can create a content database around that as well. So I'm all about that, making sure that we make the most of the content that we create. We create content that we own first and foremost. And I think that's one of the big things, is that people are often just feeding the social media algorithms. And I see it time and time again where people have got amazing social media presences. You go to their website, which is an asset that they own for their business, and it's either terrible or they're just not talking about what they do. And it's something that actually just, and I get it. I get it that you can go on social media and it feels like you're doing a lot. It feels easy. It feels a lot more interactive. I've had a few conversations with people recently about why they neglect their website, and it's come up twice with people saying it's boring. So it's like, actually, just getting past that and thinking about,
It's a huge mindset
it
shift for
really
people,
is.
isn't it?
It
Is
really
going,
is.
you've just been told that you need a website. You've not been told why you need a website. And that's the difference I feel that you're getting across
Yeah.
as well, is that actually it's a powerhouse to work for you.
Yeah. And it's literally going to bring money into your business. So actually, yeah, I think just getting past that, maybe getting past some of those tech barriers as well. Of actually, if the thing that you need to do today to get more sales coming through your website is to spend a little bit of time learning how your website builder works, if that's the first step of what you need to do, then do that rather than trying to create another post for Instagram or LinkedIn or wherever. Spend some time on something you own, or if not, then have somebody in your team who can do that, or a VA or a developer. But actually, then you can then take it back and work on that strategy part of it as well. And you then spend some time of thinking about, okay, what do I need to show up for on Google? And is that part of it as well? So I think definitely in terms of getting those systems in place, do that first, get those basic pages in place, and then start thinking about what content you need to create to become an authority in your topic. And it might be that you need to create some like cornerstone pieces of content. So some really strong blog articles that might not necessarily be the ones that you show up for in position 1 in Google, or that you're ranking for in Google, showing up at somewhere in those top results. But it then supports those articles that you've got more chance of showing up for. So you've already talked about this specific thing about the core topic of what you do. Google then understands that you know what you're talking about. And actually, one of the things that we need to do now with AI is actually making sure that we've got our own experiences in there. Maybe if you've done any research, if you've done like any stats, anything like that actually shows any awards you've won, things that show that you are a real genuine person who knows about this, rather than somebody who just knows how to use ChatGPT. So actually thinking about that. And then at that point, you can start thinking about then getting other things in place that will then utilize the technology and actually get those automations in place. So, and that's where you will come in then, Suze.
Yeah, it's the getting it to work for you is the automation piece as part of it. But I love how you mentioned there it's about the data. You've got to work with the data, look at what's happening on the website currently, and then just making those tweaks to start off with. Separate your time than thinking about what's actually going to bring money into the business to going what actually is bringing the money into the business. How can I tweak what's there? And I assume then it's not big, complicated, big changes that people need to make to their websites when they start this process.
That's one of the things that I really loved when I first started going down the SEO route, and just realizing that actually small tweaks can make a big difference. And I don't just talk about SEO with my clients, I talk about conversion rate optimization. And often people will come to me thinking they need SEO, but when we look at their website, they are actually getting some traffic. So they're very visual or very visible on social media, or maybe they're doing loads of networking. They're actually getting some visitors to their website. And the thing that's the most important for them to focus on is to make sure that it's set up in a way that people understand as soon as they come into their website what they do, how they're going to make their life better, and what they need to do to get it, really. So I think that
Let's talk a bit more about that conversion that you were mentioning there. Let's explain that a little bit for people so that they don't quite know what you mean by that.
Yeah, so it's not just about getting traffic to your website. It's not just about getting more and more visitors. SEO is about getting the right visitors at the right time, but then conversions is making sure that when people get there, that they actually take the action you want them to take. And that might be joining your email list. It might be reading a few blog posts and understanding more about you. It might then be making a purchase. Ideally, that's the goal, is that we either get people onto our email list and then they make a purchase, or that they make a purchase as soon as they come into our website. But it's all about making sure that it's very user friendly, making sure that it's set up in a way that encourages those conversions. And that's where you can really make some small tweaks that can make a massive difference, really. And it's something that often, once you point it out, like, oh, did you know you haven't actually got, like, it's not clear what you want people to do on this page. Oh yeah, of course. Like, why? Like, until somebody else points it out, you don't always realize it. And it's not always easy as well. I think it's so much easier doing this for other people than doing it for yourself. And I even find that with my website as well, really.
Yeah, it is harder to um, critique your own because we're so in it in that way. And I know that after this call with you today, that I'll be going and critiquing my own website of what I need to do as well. But this is why there's people like you that exist, though, Jules. This is why you help and support business owners to be able to make sure that that process is simple for them. That the way that you've explained this over this last kind of 45 minutes that we've been chatting, Jules, is just really clear. So I can imagine that's what this process is like when they're working with you as well. Explain a little bit more about how you help business owners when you're starting to work with them. What offers do you have for them?
Yeah, so I work through power hours, mini intensives, and I have a membership as well. So depending on what people need, it's all consulting. So I don't do any done for you work so much now, really. It's very little done for you work that I do. I do done with you. So if somebody wants me to literally hold their hand and we do it together, we can do that. I do lots of Google Business Profile optimizations with people, where we actually spend 3 hours together on a Zoom call and we literally optimize their profile there and then, and they then understand what to do moving forward with their profile.
That's great.
And it's one of my favorite things to do, because it is very step by step. So we
it's fundamental as well. Like it's and the amount of business owners I speak to that just don't even think about their Google profile in any way whatsoever, and the importance of it. They've got backdated understandings of the importance of the Google profile, so they think you need a brick and mortar business to have a Google profile, and you
Yeah.
don't. And so I think getting that set up and spending time with people and working with them on that is super great,
Mhm.
Jules. I think that's
Yeah,
fantastic.
definitely. Definitely. There's so
Hmm.
much there. And if you're posting to social media, then actually just posting on your Google profile can make a difference. Actually, it really can. It's helpful. So yeah, do that. And then audits. And fundamentally, when I'm working with people on me consulting on their SEO, it's all about getting those next best steps. And so rather than when I first started, I used to want to give them a whole list of everything that needs to change, but people just get overwhelmed. So now we just focus on those things to focus on first. So where is the low hanging fruit? What are the most important things to focus on first, really? And we'll do that. And then they get my recommendations and Q&As with me so that they can then understand what to do. And then my membership, I do have some online courses as well, but my membership is I'm actually just launching at the moment as we're recording this. So it's called the Website Growth Club, and it's a membership and community where we step by step work through those SEO and conversion. It's my website success pathway, and we work through so that you can optimize your existing website step by step, and it being bite-sized as well, rather than it being a load of tech jargon that you just don't understand. We work together there, and it's all delivered in monthly bite-sized modules, and just lots of access to me to them for then Q&As, and so you don't get stuck with the tech, basically. So.
And I think this is what people like what we do ourselves, Jill, is this is where it's super important with the age of AI in front of us and that's already here, is that yes, we can ask these tools to support us, but they don't give you the bespoke information that's right for you and the full holistic approach to your business and your needs and your requirements are, which is why speaking with another human and an expert is helpful, because they have that understanding of working with multiple of businesses and they're not just giving the bespoke answers of what an AI tool is being shared out of the memory that it's got as well. So I think working with the tools as well as working with a person being super important going forward. And it's great that you provide that space for it, Jules.
That's one of my favorite
So
things, actually, when I get a client who's not using ChatGPT, and I can introduce them to how to use that to
yeah.
improve your messaging and how just to make things easier for you. I know I've delivered them a massive value
Hmm.
chunk in their business, really. And that even happens when doing Google profiles. Is that actually, well, let's use ChatGPT to help us with this. And it's a bit of a light bulb moment, really. But yeah, it's all about making sure that you're not just taking what it's saying and assuming that applies for your business, because there's so much more to strategy around SEO. You can get ChatGPT to recommend 100,000 keywords for you, but it's not necessarily going to be the right ones for your business, really.
Yeah, they might not be the right ones
Yeah.
because they're not specific to what your audience needs or that specific customer that you're speaking to. So
Or what you're trying to achieve in your business as
yeah,
well. Yeah. And it could actually lead you down a real rabbit hole and be harmful more than helpful, really. So.
yeah, that's why they need a person to critique it in that way as well. Okay, before we finish up, what are 3 tips that you want to share with people on their website and SEO to make it a sales machine for them?
So I would say start with the basics, as I mentioned, making sure you understand what you want to show up for on Google, what's the most relevant page of your website to do that, and then optimize that. Go back and listen to this and optimize it in those places that we've said. Be comfortable with making changes to your website. Learn how to use your website builder, or get somebody in your team, or hire someone to help you understand that. Actually, that's another thing I do, is help people to understand their website tech. And number 3, what would number 3 be? Probably don't ignore it. Don't ignore your SEO. Look for those low-hanging fruits and just actually take some time to do it, because the work that you do now as well in your SEO pays dividends in 3, 6, 9, 12 months time and beyond. Whereas when you are using social media, as soon as you stop posting, the traffic stops. If you're paying for ads, as soon as you stop paying for ads, the traffic stops. As SEO can keep delivering for you, and it's not going away. With AI searches and AI overviews, all of this stuff in the back end is going to become even more important, so it's even more relevant than ever, really. So don't ignore it.
Don't ignore it. That is the best advice. And I mean, I was explaining this a few weeks ago that, see, when AI and ChatGPT just came out, we were talking then that SEO won't matter anymore because the AI tools will have all the data. But actually, what we found is that it's even more important for SEO now because it is learning, it's reading the code, it's reading the language of what's been put out there already on the search engines. And I think this was especially prevalent when ChatGPT brought out search as part of its tool. And of course, these tools are constantly evolving, but the importance of SEO is even more prevalent now, especially when it comes to the human side of us. And you did drop in earlier on. I've been training people on using to use Perplexity and to test how their SEO is ranking. So you type into Perplexity AI, who is your name, and what does your business name do, and that will give you a kind of brief paragraph of what is out there visible for online for you and your business. It will then provide some other um, search search questions that people have may or may not ask about you and your business. So just doing that as a fundamental wow is what most people respond to. Either like, wow, that's amazing. It is articulating what it is that I do and how I do it and who I do it for. But then there's the also, wait a minute, I need to go and change my SEO. I need to go and maybe think about my SEO that's for my web presence, that's relevant to me and my business and what it is that I do. So yes, you've raised so many points today about the importance of SEO. So thank you for everything that you've brought through today. So where can people connect with you? It's the website successhub.com and the podcast that you've got as well. Talk to me a little bit more about your podcast, Jules.
Yeah, so I started my podcast in June and I have absolutely loved it. And it's been that's been one way that I've really increased my visibility online in terms of the searchability of my business and my own SEO. The podcast has been really helpful for doing that. And one of the things I'm most proud about it is that I'm actually just about to hit 5,000 downloads without
Yay,
promoting.
congrats.
But without promoting it on social media or paying for ads. And I wanted it to be my own success story. I wasn't expecting it to be massive growth, and that's not big numbers for podcasts as well. But it's something that if you'd have told me a year ago when I was thinking about starting a podcast that I'd get 5,000 downloads in the first year, I would have been over the moon. So I absolutely am, and I have to keep celebrating that and reminding myself of that.
That is great.
And one of the things that I've done with that is making sure that I have podcast episodes on my website. So everything links back to my own domain. And that's one thing I would say actually as well, is make sure that anything you're doing, anywhere you're creating content online, link it back to your own website domain, really. So yeah, that's something that I've got lots of tips there. I've got 77 episodes there. I've got a few audit episodes there, which I really enjoy doing those. So it's there's lots of tips for SEO, and if you want to learn more, then that's the best place to kind of learn.
I do like your audit episodes because they're relevant to the business and the kind of business that you're working with as well. So if you're in that specific industry, I recommend that you go and look through the audits that Jules has done and see how that's.
I've got some in
critique your own that way. Sorry,
yeah,
Jules.
I was going to say I've got some in there for both service-based businesses as well as product-based businesses. So there are different ones in there because it is. I mean, the fundamentals are the same, but then there's just nuances on what you would do if you're a service-based business and if you're not relying on that volume of traffic through your website. It's still really important to make sure that you're getting those inquiries through, really.
And I love how you mentioned there about putting it onto your own website as well, because I believe, and I'm sure there's just from what you're saying there, that I think that you believe this as well. The future of your business is the data that you have. So you having the data of your own business held on your own platform is really going to be the importance going forward. If we're giving if you're running your business purely on social media and you don't have a website or you don't have anything else set up, then you don't own any of that content.
No, and so, it can go away. You could lose your account, and we hear it happening. So
yes. It happens more frequently, especially for small business owners, micro business owners and entrepreneurs that are using social media purely as a means of generating income. They've got to really pivot and think differently and think about where their audience and what these tools are doing, because we have no control over them. We've got to make them work for us. So that sounds like a negative thing to end on, but it's not. It's the importance of making sure that your web presence is working for you. And the free tools are out there to do it, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Just
And
need to set up the time
it's
to do it.
something you own. You're building an asset that your business, it helps to increase the value of your business. It helps you to be able to then connect with people and get them on your email list. And that actually you own that as well. So yeah.
Well, congratulations on your 5,000 downloads, and I will add the link to the podcast in the show notes as well so that you've got it. And thank you for joining me today, Jules. It was a great session, lots of shares, and any questions, just reach out to Jules and she'll follow up with you there too.
Brilliant. Thank you. It's been great to be here. I feel like we need to do another one, really, don't we?
Well, I think so. We'll do this phase 1 and then we'll move into more strategic stuff, I think. Yeah. On another episode, I would love that. But thanks for having you. Thanks for coming on today, Jules.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been lovely. I've really enjoyed
it. Great. Okay, thanks. Bye. Bye. That's it for this episode of Digital Dominators. If your brain's buzzing and you're ready to keep that digital energy going, come join us at technologycoaching.online. It's the community for small business owners who want to get visible, take action, and grow with the right support around them. Head to technologycoaching.online. I'd love to see you there. And until next time, keep showing up, tackling your tech, and dominating your digital world.